Here's a question that doesn't get asked enough. Why would someone participate in citizen science if their heating might get cut off next month? This is Why Would You Bother? The second episode from the European Citizen Science Project at the EXA 2026 conference in Oulu. An episode about energy, about who has it, who doesn't, and whether citizen science can actually help generate it rather than just consume it. I'm Aishwarya, and I want to think about this one carefully. Before we talk about civic participation, before we talk about responsibility, about showing up, about caring for something beyond yourself, I want to start somewhere uncomfortable. Not every person listening to this is in a position where participation feels like a choice. For a lot of people around the world, the hierarchy of what demands their energy looks something like this: safety first, then shelter, food, family, work, and somewhere much further down, if there's anything left, maybe science. That's not apathy, that's survival. So when citizen science asks people to contribute, to collect data, to show up, to care about dolphins or air quality or river plastic, it's worth asking, what are we actually asking for? And what are we offering in return? There's a concept in psychology, you've probably heard of it, about how human needs stack. The idea that you can't easily care about self-actualization when you're still solving for security. It's been criticized and refined and debated across cultures for decades, but the basic loop it describes is real, and citizen science lives inside of it. The people most affected by environmental harm, by poor air quality, by contaminated water, are often the people with the least capacity to document it. And the people with the most capacity to participate are often the least affected. That gap is the tension at the heart of this episode. But here's the loop that I find more interesting. What if participation itself, the act of showing up, of collecting, of being heard, is part of what restores energy rather than depletes it?
One of the participants had a master's degree from an elite university and fall into a hard time and really suffer from depression and loss of confidence. And the citizen science activity gave him an opportunity to attach to this part of his personality again. He presented to his whole community. And another woman that was a single mom also kind of went through the activity, and a few months later she came back and she said, this activity gave me the confidence to become a legal secretary.
Mookie Hackley described those outcomes almost as a footnote. That data was collected, the regulations changed, and also these two people's lives shifted direction. But they're not the footnote, they are the argument. If citizen science can restore someone's sense of agency, their belief that they can do something, that their observations matter, that the world is something they act on rather than something that acts on them, then participation isn't just a cost, it's a return.
Researchers these days know that just containing their research to their respective labs is not going to get them anywhere. Not just professionally, but I feel that there is a personal need to do more, using their research to actually make tangible change in society. And citizen science allows to get to know the community better, to work for the people, with the people, by the people.
Pooja Khurana from the Marie Curie Alumni Association was talking about researchers, but the same desire runs through every community citizen science touches. People want to matter. They want their knowledge to count. That impulse isn't Western or Eastern, urban or rural. I think it's human. What varies is whether the structures around them make space for it. I want to challenge something. The word participation in citizen science often conjures a particular image. Someone with a smartphone downloading an app, going for a nature walk. That image has a geography. It has an income bracket. It has free time built into it. But some of the most powerful examples of citizen science participation in this transcript actually looks nothing like that.
And then as for community science, which is this approach of communities actually collecting data because they realize they're being marginalized or they're being discriminated against, that's a different story, because then you're forced to collect this data because nobody's doing it for you.
Community science, where the data collection is driven by necessity, not curiosity, is participation too. It just comes from a different place, not the I have time and I find this interesting, but rather the nobody is measuring what's happening to us, so we have to. That's not a lesser form of citizen science, and it might be the most urgent form.
So I work on the Enforce project, which again focuses on actually finding ways to validate citizen science data to the extent that it can be used for authorities or municipalities or even case law.
Leo works on making citizen science collected data legally usable, admissible as evidence for environmental enforcement. Think about what that means for a community living next to an illegal dumping site. Their participation isn't a weekend activity, it's a form of recourse.
I was just about to join the session, which is on the potential for citizen science in decolonizing knowledge.
Leonardo is a project officer at EXA with a background in sociology, and he flagged something. The idea that citizen science isn't just about adding more people to existing knowledge systems. It should also be about questioning which knowledge systems get to count in the first place, like traditional knowledge, local knowledge, the knowledge held by communities who have observed their landscapes for generations without ever being asked to publish a paper about it. Citizen science at its most ambitious isn't just democratizing access to science. It's asking what science could look like if it started from different places entirely.
Last year, we had the first plastic pirate pilot in Romania. So this is a happy story for me. It's like the biggest international citizen science community that monitors plastic pollution in European and international rivers.
Lucrina is the European Citizen Science Ambassador for Romania, and she described building something almost from scratch, a national network, a platform, a pilot of a Europe-wide river pollution monitoring project, all in a country where citizen science barely existed 3 years ago. That's not participation trickling down from the top. That's someone deciding that their country belongs in the conversation and making it happen.
Oftentimes, when you do an event, you invite the same people and you reach out to the same people, and you have your channels, and that's all you reach. And that's something that's still growing with us as well, and still but we are becoming more and more intertwined within the citizen science community that is so much bigger than I thought it was when I started my journey in ECS. It's really trying to make sure that we're connecting with all the different strands of citizen science in Ireland.
Aoife Taylor at Trinity College Dublin made a point that keeps coming back to me. The citizen science community is bigger than any of us know because a lot of it is invisible to institutions. Someone in the countryside collecting environmental data with no connection to a university, or a community group monitoring air quality outside a school, or a fishing family tracking changes in the sea. They're already participating. The question is whether the system knows they exist and whether it has anything to offer them. There's a phrase I kept hearing in different forms: civic sense. The idea that people have a responsibility, not just a right, to engage with the world around them. But civic sense is one of those phrases that can curdle quickly. It can tip into a kind of finger wagging that assumes everyone is starting from the same place, that if you don't participate, you simply don't care enough. Leonardo pushed back on this carefully.
Civic sense, as you said, comes from education. It's not a mystery that populations with the highest civic sense in Europe are the Nordic ones, because it's ingrained in them since they are kids. Through education, family, wherever the education is being done, right?
He's not saying that other cultures lack civic sense. He's saying that civic engagement, the habit of it, the infrastructure for it, is something that gets built. It doesn't arrive naturally. And if it gets built in some places and not other, that's not a personal failing or a cultural failing. It's a structural one.
I was never told in all of my years in schools and university, I was never told that I should be paying the taxes and how I should be doing so. This is like basic stuff, but nobody's telling you that.
I found this so unexpectedly honest, and I hadn't even thought about it. Here's a researcher at a citizen science conference, and the example he reaches for is taxes. Not biodiversity, not climate, taxes. The most basic contract between a person and a collective. His point is that civic participation of any kind requires someone to first say, this is yours too. You belong in this and your contribution matters. And that's exactly what the best citizen science does.
Citizen science, I think, is a way to make science sometimes a little bit more accountable because it's open to people who don't have access or the privilege of having credentials or qualifications or an education in science.
I am hopeful. It has shown me that good collaborations, collegiality exists, even within academia. And I feel more confident and comfortable now collaborating with stakeholders outside my immediate circles as well.
Confidence, accountability, belonging. These aren't soft outcomes or footnotes sitting alongside the real scientific results. They might be the mechanism by which citizen science sustains itself at all. Because if people don't feel like science is theirs, if they don't feel seen in it, heard by it, changed by it, they won't keep showing up. And they shouldn't have to. I started this episode with the question, why would you bother if your basic needs aren't met? And I think the answer is often you wouldn't. And that's legitimate. But I also think citizen science is making a bet that participation itself, being asked, being listened to, seeking your knowledge, turned into something that changes your street or your river or your diagnosis, can be part of what meets those needs. Not all of them, not a substitute for housing or healthcare or safety, but at least something real. The loop isn't first solve everything else, then participate in science. The loop at its best is participation in science helps solve some of everything else.
That as a citizen science community, we should really look for showcasing success cases that are like super inspiring, that people were involved, that made a change, and that also the most untangible impacts of these stories can be seen. Because when you involve people, aside from the scientific output, there's a lot more going on. There's people that are changing the way in which they see themselves, in which they see you, in which they see the environment. So I think this is a very powerful part of citizen science.
I still think that citizen science can play a role. We just need to understand how. And never an easy questions to be asked.
Well, that's that.
That's my hot take.
Thank you.
Never stop asking questions, even the uncomfortable ones. Well, actually, especially the uncomfortable ones. Thank you for listening. This has been Why Would You Bother?, the second episode from the European Citizen Science Project's podcast series. I'll see you in the next one.